Okay, that's my cue. I want to sincerely thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for this webinar. This is a complex topic. I'm offering today this whole world of authentic leadership, leading with courage, connection, and core values in an AI world. And it's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to join you here. I think I pushed the wrong button here. Speaking of a technology world, I hope that I'm coming through okay. So, folks, as I say, this is a complex topic. We have a complex number of organizations that are represented here. We have public service, private sector, we have agriculture, law enforcement, legal, healthcare, education, to name just a few. All of you will depend on AI, have become dependent on AI in a variety of ways. And my perspective here today is to offer my perspective. That's it. To start a conversation, to perhaps encourage a continued conversation on this whole topic of AI, what this means to you, what it means to me, and to reflect on your philosophy of AI. Reflect on your own personal values. You'll see that AI helped me make this presentation. You probably have clued in by now that this image that you're seeing in front of you is an AI-generated image. This is not a real photograph. This is an AI-generated image. So where does AI fit into your life? Where does technology fit into your life? We all need to kind of reflect on these. Now, for those of you who haven't been to my webinars before, I'm going to talk for approximately 45 to 55 minutes, somewhere in there. And then we turn off the recording, we turn on the cameras, and we create a dialogue where you have a chance to give your perspective. I'm going to give you my perspective on this. What I'm hoping is that I'll get your perspective. And many people tell me afterwards that it's the dialogue afterwards that has the most power and the most meaning. I'm going to start with a quote by Don Campbell, my good friend Don Campbell, who I'm assuming is on today. If you want to make small changes in your life, change the way you do things. If you want to make big changes in your life, change the way you see things. So that's my hope today, is that we can have a respectful conversation about where we see things, where I see things, where do you see things, and that we can begin to have this dialogue around how we see things in terms of technology and in terms of this world of AI that we now live in. I want to start by sharing with you some of the good things that AI brings to this world. Now, my daughter just bought a washing machine that is AI powered. It's an incredible deal here. So she puts clothes in the washing machine and turns it on. The AI will read what's the water level, the temperature level, the level of soap. She didn't have to worry about any of that. It's all done automatically. That's a fun tool. It's important to recognize that AI at a personal level can be a very fun and useful tool, but we need to make sure that we remember what it is a tool for. Now, I've just made a list here of some of the value that AI brings to the world. And I would invite you to put into the chat room, what have I missed? Where have you seen AI bring value to your life? It can write you an article. I tell my students, I teach graduate students how to be, social work students, how to be good therapists. And I tell people, it's no question, it'll help you write a better paper, but there are limitations. It won't necessarily make you a better person, a better therapist, but it'll certainly help you write a better paper. It'll help create an image like we just started the presentation with. It'll help you express an idea. It'll help you create a song. There's now music produced by AI. It'll help you apply for a grant. I'm on a nonprofit board, and we have a grant writer that can write a grant using AI in 2 hours, can submit a grant, saved all kinds of time. It'll analyze a spreadsheet. It'll gather data. It'll solve a problem. It'll answer a question. You can basically ask any question you want, and it'll answer a question. It'll provide marketing materials. It'll make a presentation for you. So these are, and by the way, we could add to this, but I'm going to tell you, if I wanted to, I could have paid AI to make this presentation for me. So I could have had a robot present this, a design, a delivery, and develop the slides, develop the content, and deliver it. And you could have sat here for an hour and heard a robot that would be polished and smart and give me all the information that I wanted to convey today. Now, I just want you, and again, feel free to jump into the chat room on this one. I would just ask you, what would that have been like to sit here for an hour and hear a polished presentation and have all the content there? What would that have been like for you? And just jot some of your thoughts down in the chat room. And so, Mark, I'm just going to stop for a second and turn my attention over to here, Mark. Mark, what are you getting? Anything in the chat room? What would people say the experience would be like? And by the way, if you think in your mind, I would leave a presentation if it was done by a robot, the question I would ask you is, why? Why would you leave a presentation? Some of you might stay and be actually more impressed by a robot presenting than me. Why would you leave? Or what would your experience be? There's no right or wrong to this, but what would your experience be sitting here on a presentation, listening to a robot for the next hour? Mark, is there any words that are coming into the chat room that you might reflect on here?
There's lots of comments coming in. It's really interesting to see. One person actually wanted to know, how do we know you're not a robot? But in terms of what they would feel about it, I mean, they say the human interaction would be missing, some of the personal stories and examples, lack of engagement with the audience. Comments, I need the emotional connection, the human connection with people. Prefer listening to you and observing your passion, pausing when needed, nonverbals, not interested in spending time watching a robot. So lots of comments. I trust the person presenting more than an AI-generated presentation. So lots of comments with that. And lots of examples of how people, how it would help, how AI does help them or could be helping them. In terms of, there's an example of looking at not so much evaluation, but summarizing contract bids that come in, just in terms of tabulating some of those ratings. Let me just see here. Where did some of those Zoom meeting summaries?
There's lots of comments coming in.
Trip planning. Yeah, I mean, there's just all sorts of things. I'm finding it really interesting because there's things I wouldn't even have thought about. So one comment, toned down my strongly worded email. So yeah, lots of examples of how AI can help increase some productivity for people.
It is not, thanks, Mark. It is not a tool we're going to get rid of. I mean, that's like, I've been there with when we started when emails were introduced, and we were promised that emails would create more time in our life, but I digress. So we've been introduced by lots of technology in the last 40 years that I've seen in my adult years. But folks, actually, I'm actually dating I'm being on the conservative side of my dating self. So, but my whole point is, we might as well embrace this, but we better understand it and we better know what we're dealing with. But I want to create a relative balanced approach here because I do understand the value of what it brings. And I think it's important to have a stop and recognize the value. But folks, it's interesting. Am I really a robot? How do we really know that? And it's raised a level of distrust in the world, which I want to get to in a minute here. But no, you get me. Unfortunately, you don't get Lenny because he's sadly, his arthritis is so bad he can't get up the stairs anymore. But you get me. You get the imperfect, stumbling sometimes, inarticulate sometimes, but you get a human being. And I'm not saying that humans are better than robots. I'm asking you just simply to recognize the difference. I don't want to make a judgment, but I just want you to recognize the difference between an interaction with a human being and an interaction with a robot. I'm going to ask you this question. Some of you, I don't know how many of you saw Alex Honnold climb this skyscraper last weekend. And my question is, why did he do that? I mean, it was an amazing feat that he has spent his lifetime doing this. Why did he do that? Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to suggest he climbed that skyscraper for the same reason that I spent 3 days preparing for this presentation, researching, having conversations with people, investing. And the last month I have spent off and on worrying about, this is a presentation I've never given before. So I've been thinking about it and reflecting on it. Why did I do that? Why not just spend 10 minutes and program it into a robot and have a robot do me? Think of all the time it would save. Now, a question becomes, if it saves my time, what am I going to do with all that time that I'm saving? We all work at saving time, but what are we actually doing? We all work at, hey, one day we're going to retire. Well, what are we doing to plan the time for that retirement? I digress. So I'm going to suggest that the same reason that I do these webinars, and by the way, I don't get paid for these webinars. Why do I do them? It's, some would say it's not a great business model to invest 3 days of your time for a complimentary presentation. Well, why do I do it? For the same reason that Alex does it, because it's who he is and it's what he does. From his earliest memory, he just climbs stuff. And my earliest memory, I don't know that I would say I do webinars, but I have to get my voice out there. This is not a job for me. This is my life's work. I have to do this. My question that I'm going to ask you is, have you found what you do and who you are? That's what this has an opportunity to reflect on, so that our true nature, not our imposed, impulsive, destructive nature, but our true nature comes through in our work. And when you hit your stride and you found your thing and you found your nature, because in some way it will make the world better. So folks, I've had the opportunity here. I do coaching, and it was posed to me a few years ago. You could set up a technology for scheduling, so that people could call in and schedule, and you'd give them your own schedule. We've all seen these technological schedules. Folks, I won't do it, because it's not who I am and it's not what I do. My business is based on the value of interpersonal connection. I am tired of robots. People will not get a robot when they call our office. They will get Mark, a caring human being. They will get me, a caring human being, I hope, imperfectly. But you will get a human being. But that's the values that I stand on. That doesn't mean it has to be your values. But we all have to reflect on, what do we stand for and who are we? And don't get lost. My message today, don't get lost by shiny objects. Don't let shiny objects distract you from what really matters in your life. And it's not for me to tell you what matters. It's just for me to know I'm tired of robots today. I'm tired of an excessive technology, and I'm bringing it back through my work. Folks, I've spent the last year and a half writing my memoir. Many of you know this, with my daughter. My daughter's an English teacher, and she's helping me market it. I'm helping me write it. She's helping me edit it. I don't even know if I'll publish it or not. I'm going to spend probably 150 days writing this thing. Now, why would I do that? Because it's who I am, because it's what I do. Now, I could pay AI to write that for me. And probably in an hour, I could put in the criteria, write me a 80,000 word memoir. This is the things I want you to cover. And then I could say, I've done. And I could save 3 years of work. But folks, it's not what I do, and it's not who I am. And we all need to come to grips. That's my message today, is who are you and what do you do? And you would miss out the journey. I'd say, all this 150 days of my life that I would have free, if I wasn't writing my memoir? What would I do with that time? Well, I would probably write. I would do something creative because it's who I am. From my earliest age, I have to express myself. I love words. I love articulating words. And that's what I love to struggle with in my life. And I'm going to leave you one more purpose for why I'm here today. When you become a grandparent and you look into the eyes of your grandkids, you see a different quality. And I'm going to talk about AI in our families and what it's doing for our families and what it's doing to enrich our families. And, you know, whether you're an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, and you have another generation behind you, you begin to think differently about what kind of planet are we leaving? What kind of world are we creating? And it begins to have you really examine what your values truly are. So I'm going to leave you with what I would call three strategies for leading in an AI world, both in the family and the workplace. Number one, we need to ensure human oversight, human judgment over algorithmic efficiency. Stay grounded in your core values. Choose human principles over algorithmic hype, and stay connected to the natural world. Unplug and reconnect to what matters. So let's go through these one at a time. First of all, I'm going to give you a definition of human oversight in an AI world. What does that mean? Human oversight in an AI means that people remain meaningfully involved in how AI systems are designed, used, and monitored so that decisions and actions stay aligned with ethics, laws, and organizational values. It ensures that humans, not algorithms, are ultimately responsible for outcomes, especially when those outcomes affect people's rights, safety, or well-being. Now, guess where I got that definition from? From AI. So the one thing you have to hand it to AI is that they will give you information that is relatively unbiased. At least they will be critical of themselves. AI will be critical of itself. Having said that, this is a document that you would be welcome to. Well, you can gather this document on your own, but this is a document that could lead to a lot of conversations. Don't just think that the document is like having a value statement on the wall. That's not your real values. The value in those value statements comes in the conversations. What do those values mean to you? What does this mean to you? Create your own definition of human oversight, but you have to integrate in some level. This is still a human world. And I don't care whether you run a high-tech company that is all based on AI. It is still at its core a human company. And if we forget that, we will forget why we're even on this planet. Now, the whole premise here is that there's a difference between smart and healthy. And we have a culture today that has evolved into saying, how can I be smarter? And we're moving towards smart. And the emphasis that AI will present to us will be smart. It's going to make us hopefully smarter. It's going to make us present things quicker, more efficient. But let's attend and not forget that on the other side of that equation is what we call healthy, connecting the head and the heart and making sure that those are integrated together. Let's never forget this notion of human oversight. Now, I'm going to show you a short vignette, a short little video here from a show that was a sitcom that was played years ago. It was actually a 2003 sitcom, Friends. Now, if anybody were fans of Friends, you will recognize this short little vignette. This was in 2003, long before we know what AI is, but it's a really humorous way, very cleverly written way of showing us how there has to be balance. And if we just all operate from our heads, from a scientific perspective, from a technological perspective, what we miss in the world. Enjoy this little video.
The adoption agency needs letters of recommendation, and we were wondering if you would write one for us.
Of course.
course, I'd be honored.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think there's been an oversight.
Sure, we would have asked you. We just thought you wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, it's just that we don't think of you as really being so much with the words.
Wait, oh, hey.
Clearly, we were wrong.
Look, I got a lot of nice stuff to say about you guys, okay? And I know how much you want to have a baby, and I would love to help you get one.
You know what? And Joey, we want you to do it.
Thank you. All right, let me see how I'm going to start. Dear baby adoption decider people.
So excited about your letter.
What you working on? Oh, Monica and Chandler's recommendation. I want it to sound smart, but I don't know any big words or anything, so.
Well, why don't you use your thesaurus?
What'd I just say?
Watch. Here, you highlight the word you want to change, go under Tools, and the thesaurus gives a whole list of choices. You can pick the word that sounds smartest.
Oh, my God, that's great. I'm smart. No, I'm brainy, bright, clever. I love this thing. Look out, ladies. Joey Tribbiani's got the whole package. Hey, there's my recommendation. Here. And I think you'll be very, very happy.
I don't, understand.
Some of the words a little too sophisticated for you.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, of course it does. It's smart. I used a thesaurus.
On every word?
Yep.
All right, what was this sentence originally?
Oh, they are warm, nice people with big hearts.
And that became, they're humid, prepossessing Homo sapiens with full-sized aortic pumps.
Yeah. And hey, I really mean it, dude.
All right, Joey, I don't think we can use this.
Why not?
Well, because you signed it Baby Kangaroo Tribbiani. Honey, why don't you stop worrying about sounding smart and just be yourself?
You know what? You don't need a thesaurus. Just write from here. Your full-sized aortic pump.
All right, I think we got the message. So back in 1982, John Nesbitt in his book Megatrends said this, that the more technology there is around us, the more there will be a need for human touch. And he coined this term, high tech, high touch. So when we introduce any technology to an organization, to a system, to a life, we have to make sure that we balance it with this sense of high touch. And in that integration, the hope is that we will find something beyond knowledge, which is true wisdom. So I want to just very quickly give you some of the general risks using AI. Now, let me tell you where I got this from. Although you can get it off of AI, let me tell you where this particular list came from. I have a friend who is a senior partner in a multinational accounting firm. And his sole job, his position is managing risk with AI. So this is the list. He and I had a long conversation this week, and this is the list that he gave me: hallucinated or incorrect information, over automation of important decisions, data privacy and sensitive information exposure, limited understanding of real world context, bias inherited from data, lack of accountability for errors, dependence reducing critical thinking skills. We get other people to do our thinking for us, as simple as GPS. I mean, we don't have to think about where we're going anymore or how we're going to get there. And what happens to a culture when these critical thinking skills diminish? And misuse of information or manipulation. AI use, what can go wrong? Selling on Facebook Marketplace. For example, you can get AI, if you got a treadmill you want to sell, you just tell AI, Sell this treadmill for me. This is a picture of it. Price it, send it out to the marketplace, take in the money. And what AI is going to ask you for is your banking information. And people will give their banking information to AI. I don't know why you would do that, but that's one of the risks. This is the case. Paying bills automatically, wrong amounts paid, missed payments, late fees, writing contracts. People today, many people today are writing their wills with AI. And be careful. Make sure you understand those unenforceable terms. There's legal exposure when you start to let AI develop documents for you that may not have grounding. The cost of AI, direct financial costs, obviously. And the more you want from AI, the more you're going to have to pay. Environmental and energy costs, electric and water demand for data center cooling. I'll get to that in a second. Social and ethical costs, misinformation, bias, and unfairness. AI can amplify discrimination in hiring practices, for example. Organization and hidden costs, change management, integration and governance, legal issues. These are all issues related to the cost of AI. I'm currently working with a company. Now, they manufacture gas, natural gas, and they have a very delicate system that can be life-threatening to the employees that are working within that system if the measurements are not accurate. And they have a data scientist whose sole job is to gather data, and they use AI. Now, if you're a company that uses AI, a lot of these protective mechanisms, for example, Microsoft Copilot, you have AI systems that help protect this. But even in that circumstance, she gathered the data, and then the leaders, she doesn't have an operational background, so the leaders have to interpret that data and make it real for the systems that they're now. AI will tell you that they're getting better and better at setting that context, but without that context, the leaders missed it, and they just let the data run the system and make decisions for the system. And it just about costs the lives of 3 people that work in that plant. So you just don't know, and without some oversight, what might happen here. This is a data center. Some of these data centers that are popping up now all over the planet, some of them are 500 acres of data work. This is obviously an AI-generated image. But these kind of data centers are taking over, are using up our agricultural land. There's environmental cost to this. And so how does this apply to us? It's an important thing to keep an eye out on, to be aware of. Now, a leadership credo, and again, I got this off of AI, but what would be a credo that you would stand for, that would lead to some conversations in your workplace? What would be a credo that would say, this is what I stand for? And here is a potential credo that you might consider. In an AI-saturated world, my first responsibility as a leader is to keep humans, our dignity, rights, and relationships at the center of every technological decision. I use AI to serve people and the public good, never the other way around. So there's a statement that you might consider changing or using, or having a conversation with your team about, where does AI fit into our world here? What does it mean to us? And to begin to reflect deeply on that. Now, I have to mention 3 technological trends that are currently demonstrating a lack of balance of technology in our society. You know, there's an old method of the miners that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, that they would put a canary in the mine, and if the canary died, they knew this was an indication that there was big problems in the mine. And there is a canary that's dying in our world today. And it goes a little bit beyond AI, but it relates very much also to AI. And I want to relate those. Number 1 is online gambling. And it's all, I'll bring it all back to AI in a second. 33% of American men and 22% of American women, 20% of Canadians now have a sports betting account. Nearly half of the men between the ages of 18 to 49 have these accounts. Almost 70% of college students living on campus now bet on sports. And 60% of high school students have gambled online in the last year. Why is this a problem? Online sporting betting services will kick you off the platform. And by the way, anybody that wants reference to where I got this this research from, well, you can certainly get it off of AI. But anybody that would like that, I'm happy to provide that for you. Online sports betting services will kick you off the platform if you start winning with any consistency. You literally cannot make money over time on these services. If they're letting you bet, you are by definition bad at it. Okay? Online video games, Minecraft and Fortnite attract roughly 30 million monthly active users under the age of 18. Roblox, however, is the major player in this field, attracting 305 million monthly active users under the age of 18. 75% of US children between the ages of 9 to 12 are active monthly users on this platform. Why is this a problem? Some of the Roblox world, a game in which you are trained to hide a body after a murder, a simulation of a concentration camp where users carry Nazi flags, a classroom in which teachers have sex with students, a simulation of killing children in an elementary school with an AK-47. In 2023, Roblox reported over 13,000 instances of child exploitation, leading to 1,300 law enforcement requests. A reported 51% of adolescent gamers encountered extremist content, while 10% of girls had been sent sexually explicit content while playing. Over 40% of boys report that gaming is hurting their sleep and their mental health. Conclusion, if you have given your child an iPad or a video game player on which you haven't specifically activated internet restrictions, they aren't innocently playing Angry Birds. They're almost certainly involved in these games and are exposed to all kinds of harms that accompany them. And finally, I want to talk about the trend of chatbots that relates obviously directly to AI. 72% of US teens have used an AI companion at least once, and more than half use them multiple times a month. AI systems are already engaging in sexualized interaction with children and offering dangerous advice, including excessively flattering comments and encouraging young people who are considering suicide to proceed. As of last fall, OpenAI is facing 8 different wrongful death lawsuits involving advice given by ChatGPT. The volume of these cases is expected to skyrocket in the near future. Conclusion, do not let your children or teens use chatbots without supervision. Cal Newport says it this way, and by the way, most of this research was found very well documented in an article that he wrote called, he's a New York Times author, and What's Worrying Jonathan Haidt Now? Think of this as similar to letting your children have an unsupervised conversation with a random drunk at the end of the bar. It might be harmless, but there's a good chance the interaction will take them to dark places. This is what we call responsible human oversight. I think we've created, Jonathan Haidt would say it this way, that we've over-supervised their outer world and we've under-supervised their social media world. All right, let me get to that. So that's my first point, is to ensure human oversight, human judgment over algorithmic efficiency. My next point is stay grounded in core values. Choose human principles over algorithmic hype. Here's a question that I'm going to have us all reflect on, is how do we define a good life? You could even put that in your chat box, in your chat room. How do you define a good life? And folks, we often get driven by these shiny objects that look attractive, especially when when our minds are developing. But even as adults, these shiny objects can come into our workplace and can make us get distracted about what really matters. How will we live and work together in a way that will support a good life for all of us? What if we could begin to have conversations even in the workplace, much less the family? How will we define what is a good life? And then the key is, how will we use AI as a tool to help us create and ensure this? Though I have to have at least one mistake, just so you understand that it's not a robot here. All right. Aristotle identified what he termed external goods, such as wealth, property, power, and reputation. These are the elements that make up a popular vision of success, both then and now. 23 centuries ago, he taught that the good life is not one of consumption, but of flourishing of our deepest selves. To these, Aristotle contrasted elements of character, which he termed the goods of the soul, including fortitude, temperance, justice, and wisdom. Let's never forget what truly matters. It's what David Brooks talks about, the difference between eulogy virtues and resume virtues. And we spend our life building a resume. And then when we come to the end of our life, what do we focus on? Is what kind of person this person was. Who am I? What do I stand for? What is truly essential in my life? How can I be a better person? How can I make the world better than when I found it? These questions have to guide our use of any technology. How will any tool help take us toward that? Start to have these conversations. How will I live and how will we live and work together in a way that will support a good life for all of us? Let's not forget that there's a difference between being better, a better person, and being better off. To be a better off, we've created a culture where we've continually stressed the external. And I'm getting to a point in my life, I'm going through a significant transition in my life right now. I'm in the middle of this where I'm not retired yet, but I'm changing the way that I view the world, and I'm speaking more from my heart. And I'm beginning to realize that our goals in life might well be off. That instead of talking about being better off, which is what I spent most of my early years, adult years doing, what if we change the goal to being a better person? And what if AI could be a tool that would move us, at least support us? I don't know that AI is capable of being a tool to make us a better person, but what if we had that frame in our work and interaction with AI? Be careful about the tyranny of the pursuit of the external. And I come back to a little bit of a humorous slide on this one. For those of you who remember Cool Runnings and the Jamaican bobsled team, and the coach, Coach Irv Blitzer, the fictitious coach that played by sadly John Candy. If you're not good enough before the gold medal, you won't be good enough with it. It's a very powerful statement in a consumer society. All of the shiny objects that we pursue, all of the technologies that we embrace, if we're not good enough before we embrace it, all the achievements that we strive for, if we're not good enough before those achievements, we will never be good enough without them. We won't be enough with them. It's like a leader that I met, a CEO years ago, who said, I never promote anybody to a leadership position unless they've spent at least 6 months in a nonprofit organization. And he watched his leaders. If you can't inspire and build a team without a title, then there's no way I'm going to give you a title, because you can't use your title to build a team. You have to use who you are to build that team. So let me, in conclusion here in the last 10 minutes, give you my last point, which is to stay connected to the natural world, unplug and reconnect to what matters. Now, you might wonder, what does this have to do? What does the natural world have to do with AI? Let's not get wrapped up in the world of technology. In my years of working inside of corporations and consulting and working in the leadership development, this is an image that represents the business world today. People are, and by the way, it also represents private sector. It represents healthcare. It represents so much of our world today that's fast, that's demanding, that's pressured. People are exhausted, and we're out of touch with ourselves. I just have to tell you a story about a friend of mine that I had a conversation with this morning. And this person dealt with Bell's palsy, has been dealing with Bell's palsy for the last 2 years. And he's at the stage where it's not really going to get any better. He's improved slightly, but he has a very, very hard time because a large part of his left-hand side of his face has become paralyzed. And he was talking to the neurologist this week. And this really kind of comes back to my human oversight and human connection. And after the neurologist very methodically and intelligently described all of his options, the last thing she said before he left was, "I want you to know that you're a very handsome man," because he was so insecure about his appearance and himself. And that human touch meant more than the half an hour that they had going through all of his test results. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it takes the intention to bring a human quality into this. And what happens in our world where there's no human quality? Now, my wife and I, Val, watched this movie last weekend, and I would recommend spending an hour and a half watching this. It's almost a documentary. This man has transformed his life in a year by the interaction with an octopus. How could that be possible? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. And there's no way you can't connect with AI when you're underwater. Well, I have my own kind of version of that. This is my family. We were raised on a ranch, on a small ranch in central Alberta. This is the last picture of our family together on that ranch, 1984. My parents sold the ranch in 1984, and this is my dad, my mom, and my sister and my brother. And we had horses. We were around horses, and there was something about nature. There was no technology. There was around nature. And we rode those horses, and we cleaned the stalls, and we were around animals, and we had a different quality. I don't want to go back to the good old days, but there was a quality of being in touch with with nature. How can we possibly connect to our own nature if we don't take part of the nature around us that all technology can take us away from? And again, it's not a judgment, it's a recognition. How do we come back to ourselves on a daily basis? Now, this was our hired hand on the farm. And this is a guy named Norris, and he taught me how to work with horses. And first of all, he said, don't ever buy he said, I'm not going to let you use a saddle until you've ridden for a year. And he taught me that when you get on a horse, and you hold that horse with your knees, you steer a horse with your knees, not your hands. And he said, when you sit on a horse, you're sitting on a heartbeat, and you listen to that heart, and you tune in when the horse begins to have that heart slow down. You know that horse is relaxing. And he taught me how to connect and be with a horse. Now, what does this have to do with my life? Well, many of you know that my brother was a rural physician for 35 years in Sundre. And I helped. I didn't do the heavy lifting. He lived at home with a brain tumor until his passing. And I subbed the caregivers off, his wife and the caregivers off, 1 day a week. And I had an opportunity to feed my brother in his last days and to shave him and to bathe him and to massage his feet, stuff that I would never have had the opportunity to do with my brother, that I would have never. His dying awakened something in me. But there was a powerful force that healed me through this process. My daughter was dating a rancher at the time, and he had 80 horses. And he actually ran a pack company. He would take these British soldiers and he would take them up into the Kananaskis, into the mountains here in Alberta. And I would, after I looked after my brother, I would be depleted. And what I did was that I went out to the ranch and I hung out with these horses. And it brought me right back to my early days. And I didn't even ride them. I just hung out and became part of the herd. And it's like they accepted me into the herd, and they healed me as I was grieving through that process. Now, I just want you to understand and just recognize that all of you know this intuitively, but when we're connected to something natural, when we're connected to something innate, when we're connected to the natural world, it's a very different experience than sitting in our office scrolling and running through the news and getting AI data. It's a very different experience. And I'm not saying that one is right and one is wrong, one is better than the other. I just simply know that there's a difference. And how do you connect with your true nature is what my message is. How do we connect with ourselves? And my way of doing that is through the natural world, to make sure that I have to put my feet on the soil every day to reconnect with myself. Otherwise, I can get lost and think that the reality of life can be found in technology alone. When I was on the board of Wayfinders, and we ran a ranch at Wineglass Ranch out southwest of Cochrane, and we brought first responders and veterans who had PTSD and suffered PTSD in their work. And they didn't even need to talk about their trauma. They simply came out on the ranch and worked with the horses and worked with the bees and connected to their true nature, be connected to nature. And it was, I watched the healing that can happen when we step away from technology and make room for a deeper side of ourselves. If you connect with babies, you begin to see the innate desire, the innate ability before they even have a cognitive ability to love. And when you can create an environment where the natural innate desire can emerge, this is the work of leadership in our homes and in our workplaces, to see if we can create a place where that can be released, that natural innate desire can be released. One of the things that I do is we have a community of men shed in our town. We're a community where men build together and we share together. And every Saturday morning we meet together to share our lives with each other and share. One of the programs that we offer is that we come together in the spirit of caring and we talk about what's going on in our lives. And there's such a qualitative difference between interacting with this group and, again, getting lost in the tornado of technology. And I'll end with this slide. My dear friend Murray Phillips, who was a Canadian renowned artist, And we used to spend time, he spent a third of his year in the wilderness painting. And he always used to say, art is seeing the world more slowly. My message today, folks, is that we need more art in the world than we need technology. And that art can balance this technology, and that we need to come together. And my encouragement for all of us is to move forward and be better artists in the world, and allow the artistic ability that is innate in all of us, like love, to bring that forward and to integrate that into our work as leaders with technology in an AI world. I hope that's been a helpful message for you today. We're all in one form or another in the life of transition. I have to tell you, I don't have any energy to try to convince you to come to this. We're just another day before the early bird rate is in effect until tomorrow, I guess until tomorrow night. But if you're interested, my intention here is to have a very small group of us work together. If you want to step off of your busy treadmill and come and spend 6 weeks, 2 hours every Sunday morning, reflecting on the transition in your life and how you can use transition to deepen your life and counter the what I'll call the propensity toward AI and the propensity toward technology. It's my way of bringing a little bit more balance in the world. For those of you who are in the Calgary area, I just want to mention this, that I'm doing a presentation for the Shaganappi Community for the Wellness Through Mindfulness at the Shaganappi Community Association, The Power of Presence, Mindfulness as a Path to Authenticity, those of you in the Calgary area. And next month, join me in our next complimentary monthly webinar, Authenticity, Restoring Wholeness in Ourselves and Our World. And I hope you'll join me for that. Well, on that note, I just thank you again for very much for joining me today. We will